Today is 28th of April, 2024. And today was the day that we internally and externally had as a date for releasing update 14 for Vault Hunters. Because yes, there has been some work done behind the scenes in my Hermitcraft hiatus. But as you can see, we're not there yet. We're not there. So I was thinking, I'm gonna sit here. I want to do a little bit of development work with it today. The main feature of update 14 is that of catalysts and inscriptions. They are changing. For those of you who don't remember or didn't know, I think when playing Vault Hunters on the Hermitcraft Vault Hunter playthrough, I think I realized a few things about catalysts. A, they're very inaccessible. Okay, and what I mean by this is for a new player to understand and get into catalysts and inscriptions is not just confusing, it's also scary. And then the second thing is the incredible power of catalyst removes a lot of the gameplay or need for gameplay that exists in the game. And so it's kind of weird. It's kind of like a class system in a way where, and I'm not talking like RPG class system, I'm talking like, well, either if you know the game, you get this much. And if you don't know the game, you're a potato and you get nothing. And you don't get to experience the stuff. And what we want to do, like the goal is obviously going to be a barrel. The goal is going to be that we want this to be the case. I don't know if this makes sense, but it's important to me that there is a skill ceiling, meaning that there is room for players to get better and be better than others. I think that's important in game design. But at the same time, you don't want the garbage people to be tiny potatoes because they're not going to enjoy it. And tiny potatoes are people too, let's be honest, My realization about catalysts and inscriptions is that they are way too confusing. They're not very inclusive. I know that a lot of my people watching me are like, you guys know Vault Hunters, you guys are hardcore Vault Hunters, but there are so many people that are scared off of this game. And when we have such a central mechanic to the game that is kind of gated behind knowledge to the point where if you don't know something, you're actually nerfing yourself, it's a bad game design. I would like to start by saying changing things like this is always scary, and for people who play this game actively, it is going to be a big change. I do think overall the catalysts are too powerful, but most importantly, and what I'm here to really address, is that they are way too confusing and not inclusive enough for all gamers. I also think that inscriptions are weird. They're in a weird place at the moment. It becomes this thing where I would say for an experienced player around level 50, 60, you start building these vaults to get everything at once. Which means that every other vault feels kind of dull and garbage. Unmodified vaults doesn't feel like you're looting. It doesn't feel like you're progressing. It feels like you're progressing levels, but you know what I mean? And fair enough, the catalyst system is designed to make you able to target loot, to make you able to say, I really want to get a new chestplate, so therefore I want to put ornate catalyst on my crystal, and I want to find as many ornate chests as I possibly can. I want that to be a system. I want that to exist. So, where do I start? We are first and foremost adding a new property to vault crystals called capacity. Similar of that to tools. Okay, so you know how you have chromatic iron tools. They have 100 capacity, and the highest ones have something like 650. I don't know. The difference is that a vault crystal will have capacity bond to the level of the crystal, and this is actually one thing that I do need to set up today. I do need to configure. But basically the way I'm looking at this is right now in my head, every 10 levels of the crystal will increase the capacity rating with 10. So at level 50, you have a capacity of 50. At level 60, you have a capacity of 60, right? And this continues down the line. And what's interesting with this is the idea that for the first time ever, we have a visual indicator of strength in leveling. We actually have a system where you can see and tell the difference when you craft your crystals at different levels. The capacity will follow the level, 10 at 10, 70 at 70, also 70 at 79. So this should incentivize you to go for these 10 levels. Now there is a question here, do I want to do it every 5 levels? Do we want to have capacity update every level of the crystal? It could very well be like that. It could be like it matches the crystal level always. The way I see it right now is it's quite interesting to have these sort of steps where it's like, oh yeah, I hit level 40, I get better crystals now. But if you're level 39, you don't get it. There is pros and cons with everything. It could do every level. It could be every 5 levels or 10 levels. 10 feels good because the leveling is fast. I mean, it's fast up to level 65, but then it starts cater off. But like, I like the idea of when you're level 78, let's talk high end here, right? When you're level 78, now you're actually like excited to get those last 2 levels. You know what I mean? Kind of like the group tiers in Vault Gear. Now it's like exciting to enter the next crystal level, if that makes sense. Every 5 levels is already incentivized through expertise. That's a really good point. That's a really good point. Okay, and so what is capacity? I got the question. This is so exciting for me to share with you. You see, every single inscription, we are removing anything called completion and instability. The way this works is that inscriptions are going to have, instead of instability, you see the 2000, that's just a conversion issue right now. This is actually saying that this blacksmith inscription has 20 size. So if I do it again, it now has 12 size. Okay? And you think of the capacity as the 100 on level 100. Here's how I want to do it. In this change, I also want to remove the RNG-ness of the game. I also want to make sure that we have less RNG and more choices for the player. So, here's what I want to do. Whenever you craft an inscription, whenever you craft either one of these, it is always going to be the same size. And whatever that size is, well, I think it should depend on if it's a challenge room or if it's an Omega room. Okay? So let's hypothetically, let's lay down some examples here. Let's hypothetically say that, oh, can I use this? Oh, this is cool. Yeah, let's do this. Let's say that an Omega inscription is weighted 10, while a challenge room inscription is weighted 5. Now, for those of you who don't know what inscriptions are, they add rooms to the vault. Guaranteed rooms. So every time I craft a mushroom inscription, I will get the same item. There is no random chance. Completion is gone, time is gone, and they will always be size 10. Okay? And then every time I craft a challenge room, they will always be size 5. This automatically values the challenge rooms at half of an Omega one. So let's consider that these are the numbers. Every time I craft an Omega inscription, it's 10. Every time I craft a challenge inscription, it's 5. Now, if I find an Omega inscription, I am thinking, and this is up for debate, this is what we're doing here today. I am thinking that the found one has a random size roll between 5 and 10. So when I find an inscription, I can get it at a very brilliant size at 5. That's step number 1. When I find a challenge room inscription, you know, maybe it rolls the same way. It would roll, what, like 3 to 5 here then? So it's not as exciting, but the found ones are still have a chance of being better. Let's consider that every inscription adds always, we do this with a red letter, every inscription will always add 5 minutes. There's no randomness to it. The reason I think that's important is because I've learned that you don't want to put too many mathematical things on the player. You want to let the player not make too many choices. Let them make choices, but not too many choices. So let's say that you always get 5 minutes per inscription. So if I take my crystal and I add my mushroom inscription at size 10, it is going to change the crystal to have... it's going to take up 10 capacity, and I'm going to have 5 minutes in my vault. Now here's another angle that we need to consider, and that is our expertise. We have 2 expertises that in this patch are going to be obsolete. Infuser and Mystic. We haven't really talked about Catalyst yet, but these 2 are going to be obsolete. Right now in my head there is an idea to make these be replaced with being good at crafting either inscriptions or catalysts. And what does that do? Well, if I've taken the expertise to craft inscriptions, maybe I craft the lowest level Omega inscriptions every time I craft them. Take 1 point to this, now your Omega inscriptions will be size 8 when crafted. Take 2 points in it, now they will be size 6. Take 3 points in it, now they will be size 5. That's so straightforward and so easy to understand that I feel like it's gonna sit well with most people. This is only half of the puzzle for how I want to change it. Or it's only a third, really. Because the second to this is Catalyst. So Catalysts are in my head going to work the same. But there's going to be a massive change to Catalysts. This table, like today the process is as follows. You find Catalyst, these things, fragments. You combine them into being one of these. And then you infuse them using Mystical Essence. The reason it's designed this way is mostly to get a way to sync resources, mainly Dreamstone and Beniotite. But it's confusing. It's a very confusing system, indeed. And so here's what we're gonna do. This table, this amazing looking table, is going to change its UI to look like this. You are going to be able to craft the catalyst you want. You're going to be able to craft an ornate catalyst, a gilded catalyst, a wealthy catalyst, a living catalyst. You will choose what catalyst you want to create at a cost. We're probably going to delete this item, Mystical Essence. We're probably going to use Dreamstone as the main ingredient, as well as the catalyst fragments. So the price isn't really going to change. It's just going to be simplified for new players. Okay, so you put your catalyst fragments in, you put your Dreamstone or whatever it is in the resource, the Beniotite, and boom, there you go. There it is. This means that we aren't just nerfing catalysts. We're nerfing catalysts with the capacity, sure. But we are making them more accessible and we're making the choice be yours. Let's actually think about negative modifiers first. I'm struggling to find a way to balance catalysts without using negative modifiers. It was in my brain and in the plan for update 14 that the default catalysts don't actually have a negative on them. But I think that's dumb. I think that you do need to increase the difficulty and the risk when you increase the power of the vault. I think that goes hand in hand. What about curses? Glad you asked! Okay, we're moving on. Capacity is like this. Let's for ease sake say that this is a level 100 crystal and every one of these weighs 10. Well, I can add 10. Boom. My crystal has 10 catalysts on it. It's a pretty powerful boy. 10 times ornate because I've chosen ornate myself. Here's the thing. You can, if you want to, go on. Add more. That's what this table is about. This is our new arcane anvil. This is where you build your crystals. No more anviling. If you want to add more, you can keep adding catalysts. Okay? But once you go past 10, now on the 11th one, you're going to curse the crystal. Every single time. There won't be any motes. Motes are going away. You can keep adding catalysts, but you're gonna get the crystal cursed every single time. And here's what a curse is. This is very important. I am, as I said earlier, removing shortened as a negative modifier. No longer will you add these negative modifiers and then enter the vault only to find out that you lost 4 minutes. It's a punch in the face, am I right? You feel like you've been knocked down. Your beautiful vault is ruined. You lost 4 minutes. So no more negative modifier with losing time. However, every single time the crystal gets cursed, and we can talk about the curses in a second, every single time you purposely, because you're risking it, add a curse, you're also losing a minute of vault time. Every single time. So yeah, go ahead, add curses, make the vault better, but at the cost of curses. And what curses are we looking at here? Well, we are going to be looking at probably some pretty toxic curses, like no more mining fatigue or like slowness. I'm thinking the curses that I've designed. I'm thinking Ethereal is a great curse. It can stack. So 10%, so every 10th mob is immortal. Stack it twice, every two, like 20% of the mobs are Ethereal. I'm thinking Brutal. Do you guys know about this modifier? It's Brutal is in Brazier Vaults, I believe. I believe that I added it. Like doubles the damage of mobs. These types of curses. Curses should really mess with the player. That's what I want. It should really mess with the vault. You should only do it if you're like high-end gaming, you got like overpowered gear, go for it. You know, go for it. Do it. Now, someone asked what happens with seals. It's a great question. And this is not fully determined yet. We have had some discussions about this, me and Vu. So we have a little bit of a problem with seals at the moment, in my opinion. And that is that there are some different types of seals. And it's not great, is it? We have the very confusing seal of the architect, which you have to add to a crystal in order to add inscriptions. This seal is probably just going to be gone. The point here is, if you have a single inscription in your arcane anvil, when you combine the crystal, it will be a crystal with only the inscriptions that you have. So as long as you have a single inscription here, even if it's like this, your vault now is a blacksmith vault with 5 minutes if it's just one inscription. It's a little bit hard to grasp this maybe, and maybe we need to rethink this a bit. But that's my current idea. Now we have the seal of the confectioner, which is a block seal. And the idea here is that in order to apply this to a crystal, it has to be first. If it's like this, what's going to happen is it's going to apply this catalyst and then stop. Because this exhausts the crystal. This is what I mean with a little bit of different seals. But if we look at the seals that are actually seals that changes the objective and nothing else, my idea is that each one of these seals will also have a capacity cost. And it will be static, it won't be random. And they will probably be the same. Maybe not. Maybe there is reason to have, you know, the brazier, which adds modifiers, at 10. Maybe that makes sense. I don't know, I haven't really thought about this. But if you set your objective, if you're modifying your crystal, it should take space on your crystal, because it is simply better than not doing it. There has to be a trade-off where if you choose to run the crystal with a random objective, you are going to have more space to modify the positives, to add more catalysts. So what about theme augments? Theme augments would not weigh anything. But yeah, they would use the same system. They go in here as well. You can see they already work there. It sets the theme. Let's zoom out. We're zooming out. Your arcane anvil is your crystal workbench. This is where you modify your crystal. Putting an augment on your crystal, you're modifying the vault, to have a specific theme. Putting a seal on the crystal is modifying the crystal. Telling the crystal to provide you with a blacksmith room, it's modifying the crystal. And so it should also be in the same bench. There is no sense to me in having 2 benches, other than confusing all the new players once again. Nor is there sense to me to have a different augment. So we have the cake. We have the cake thing, right? It's a bit weird. Like, how is that going to modify all of this? How is that going to interact? We have the chaos seal. We have things that like exhaust crystals. We have so many different rules with how to modify a crystal. I call them capstones. Like, we have Phoenix Feather, which is its own system. We have Eye of Avarice. I feel like I just want to remove all of these. And the way I see these are capstones. And then we have... Okay, so let's actually go through how many different systems we have. This is quite embarrassing. So, capstone. Stackable capstone. Singular capstone. Not even capstone, just singulars. Singular seal. Oh dear, this is a mess. Plunderer and Warden Pearl. Yeah, there you go. Warden's Pearl is a capstone. Plunderer Pearl is a capstone. So, to the left are all the things that caps the crystal. This means that you can have things on the crystal, but it will make it unmodifiable when you apply these. In the middle are things that makes the crystal unmodifiable, but stacks with themselves. And to the right are things that requires the crystal to be completely empty when you apply them in order to change the crystal entirely. Okay, picture this. Picture that these items, let's talk about these items first. Capstones are easier to figure out. Let's talk about these items first. None of these items could be catalysts. They also can't be seals. They have to be like something like this. This is a better version. The Soul Flame. They have to be their own items. And instead of crafting the crystal using the button press, you would put your Vault Rock on here, fill up the things, and then right-click the Soul Flame to make it a Soul-Flamed crystal. Or right-click the Creator item to make it a creative item. Or right-click the Chaos Catalyst to make it a... But it wouldn't be a Catalyst, it would be something else. It would be a Chaos Stone. But then, okay, playing Devil's Advocate. That ruins auto-crafting setups for crystals, people's base infrastructure a bit. And it is also not very intuitive. And I know what you guys are going to say. You can say, well, it can say so on the tooltip, right? Or it can say so in the quest book. Yeah, all of these things are good. But we're trying to create intuitive effects here. And you craft a crystal using the button. That is how it works. Also, what is the difference from doing this and then having your item combine in order to change the crystal entirely in an anvil? It's the same thing, right? It's the same thing. And so, okay. So then, why is the step so much farther from instead of putting it in the anvil, you would put it in here? And they would apply the first slot. So if it's like this, you would not apply the ascension thing. I honestly think, as weirdly as this sounds, the biggest part in solving this mess, because it is a mess, is to realize the terminology is wrong. These 3 should not be seals. This should not be a catalyst. I think that's the biggest step. You need to apply them one at a time though. No. You misunderstand how the Arcane Anvil works. The Arcane Anvil will look at the number here, number 1. It will go from number 1 to 60. If it finds something that's not valid, it should mark it red, just like this. Right? So, it doesn't matter. Like, if the configuration is like this, obviously the cake seal is actually wrong here. It needs to be like that. Now, in the functioning version, this catalyst should be red. And it should just stop. Like you press this button, it stops here. It applies the first thing and stops. If the configuration is like this, it's going to apply the orange, the catalyst, and then stop. Because it can't apply the seal. Let's say that you have a capstone slot. Okay? Bear with me. This is going to make sense. Let's say that you have a god token that exhausts the crystal, but it can be applied after the other things have been applied. Okay? So let's say that I have a slot up here called capstone. Here's the problem with this. So now I press this button, okay? It's going to apply all of these things. It's going to go boop, 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 boop. Ignore that, ignore these. These are catalysts, let's say. Ignore this. This is a normal catalyst. So it's going to apply all the catalysts. Brrr, brrr. Okay. Is it now going to apply the capstone? Does it now go back up here and applies the capstone? Is that how we're thinking about this? Because if it does, that kind of messes it up for the player a little bit. Because maybe they want to go back and add more. Also, it has to have a separate button. But I mean, okay, look. If we start adding another button, now we're going to add another button here. Oof. Oi, oi, oi. You know, very soon this is going to look like... I mean, that's maybe not a stupid idea, actually. It's maybe not terrible. My point is, what is the difference from having it here? Okay, let's do this. Let's turn this around. This is my configuration of my crystal. What do you guys expect to happen here? What do you guys expect to happen if you configure your crystal like this? Remember, there are numbers here, okay? All slots and then the rows go red. Almost. It will ignore the last 4 catalysts. Yes, there it is. Okay. So when we get this UI correctly functioning, this slot is red and so are these 3 because you have a capstone here. And of course we need to update the tooltip so it actually says capstone on them. Yeah, the last 4 catalysts should be red. Exactly. Okay, what happens if I do this? That's a chaos catalyst. Well, now this is red. Because you can't apply that in that order. It needs to be first. If I'm new, all catalysts plus the rows with how it currently works. Yes, correct. Not all catalysts though. It would go in order. It would make it a hunt the guardians. And then it would apply all of these catalysts up to the rows. And it would apply the rows and make the crystal unmodifiable. These catalysts would be yeeted. Or they would not be yeeted. They would stay in the UI. They would just sit there. If they would be red, I would understand. Yeah. No, I think you're right in that. I think that it needs to look like this. All of the slots thereafter are red, right? Teaching this to new players will be hard. Yeah, that's not ideal. Also, the current system doesn't allow this, right? You can't put a catalyst and then a seal. But that doesn't matter in the new system, right? That doesn't matter at all. We don't care about that. We don't have instability anymore. In the new system, this should be completely fine. And so does order need to matter at all? In this case here, is there actually logic in stopping the process here? Maybe it is correct to have a seal slot, like I originally requested. And maybe that slot will not accept items. It will be a disabled slot. As long as there's an inscription either on the crystal or in this UI. But then, yeah, what's going to happen if you have a seal in there first? Okay, let's take a step back for a second. So everyone is in agreement that these 5 items, as it currently stands, needs to be changed so that they are indeed items. Not catalysts, not seals. And then these items that we call capstones, as of this stream, I've actually called them that internally, also need to be changed so that they bear similarity. They all need to look similar. Maybe, you know, a square background or whatever. And maybe we move Phoenix Feather, remove the stackability just to make it easier. So that a capstone is actually like, it's a base item with an icon. We can find a design that would work for capstones. Okay, so now all of these items would not even fit in this inventory. Like you couldn't even put them in here. Would that solve the seal issue? If seals are just seals, it would be solved, right? And then we could have a seal slot. Because the other problem with seals is that previously we haven't allowed the gamer to put things in before the seal, but now that doesn't matter anymore because we don't have instability. The only reason it's like that is because we had instability. Basically, we didn't want a gamer to seal their crystal, their successful crystal with like elixir. We wanted them to make that choice first. What would the problem be with this? Let's actually do this fully. Let's say that we also have a seal slot, right? Vutax is going to hate that it's its own slot. He's going to say, why can't it just be in here? Well, because you can add multiple seals. So that's the answer. Okay, so I have my answer. But then it's going to say, well, capstones, you can't have multiple capstones. True. True. And that's the issue here. That's the answer. Yeah, that's the answer. That's why we also need a separate slot for a capstone. And you can't have multiple themes. True. So we are saying this is now getting very close to the original sketch I did back in November, where I couldn't for the life of me argue my point. But basically, inscriptions and catalysts are fine here. Order doesn't matter. We then need a slot for a capstone, a seal, and an augment. How would the layout be? Well, if I get to decide, I would remove this section here. And so we would have our seal slot. We would have our augment slot. And we would have our capstone slot. In this area here, we would only have catalysts and inscriptions go into this. We could also keep the tooltip and instead have these slots over this centerpiece. I think this is actually what I suggested. Because these don't need a title. They have a background. The background would be that of a seal or a... Yeah. But then it would be slightly annoying that we don't have a fourth. And then the tooltip would still be here, scrollable. Charms. Do we have another game function that I forget about? It's the most annoying that this could be now. Where we have solved it and then we realize that charms is a new thing. What happens here? Wait. Calm. Before we panic and realize that we have wasted time. Here we go. Yeah, here we go. And so yeah, this is how we do it. And you know what we do as well? We of course let these take some size as well, right? We let these take size on the crystal. A static size is fine. For every charm takes 5 capacity. Of course they do. There it is. Charms are not an issue. Charms is a non-issue. Will capacity vary between crystals? Capacity is bound to the level of crystal and is not random. Currently I have it configured to be steps. Okay? So if you're level 10 and craft a crystal, you will have 10 capacity. If you're level 18, you will still have 10 capacity. If you're level 20, you will have 20 capacity. 30 capacity. 70 capacity. 78, 70 capacity. That's how it currently works. That's not set in stone. They might be increments every 5 levels. They might be increments every level. They might match the Vault Crystal level as well. There's good and bad with both. I like the 10 steps because it incentivizes you to use the crystals you craft when you play the game. It also makes it exciting to be level 78 and knowing that you soon unlock your next capacity. Make it exponential? No. Once you hit your limit, once you hit the 100 on level 100, you can keep adding catalysts and inscriptions, but you will curse your crystal with every one you add beyond that point. And that is how we use this beautiful color system. The color system, because we won't need the green and red here anymore. But imagine that my crystal in this case would be, let's remove these for less confusing times. Okay, in this example, my crystal, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I have a level 70 crystal. It's got 70 capacity. And so this is showing me that I'm also adding one cursed addition to the crystal. The lore. Oh, the lore in that. It's cursing the modification slot. It's making the modification slot cursed. However, should I switch my crystal out to a level 100 crystal? Let me just do some quick behind the scenes stuff here. Boom! The slot is green. Yeah, we would have these spots would be brown when you curse the crystal. They could even be brown, like this. They could read the crystal. And instead of numbers here, because we don't need the numbers here. Instead of numbers, they would have the little skull on them. But there it is. That's clean. And that is how you game design. And that is how you make things clean. So what do we need? What do we take from this? Well, we take that the mechanic, everybody likes the capacity. You guys are happy with the capacity. I'm very excited about the capacity. It's going to give access to so many more gamers to play with Catalyst. It's also going to make it, if I can get the balance right. Now, mind you, by the way, these are not set in stone. These values are not set in stone. They may be different. I would like to, honestly, I would like to say that it's something like this. Sorry, I changed the wrong thing. Okay, I would like it to be probably higher on the ones you craft, right? Because they're more accessible. And I would like the excitement gap, okay, you know this word, gap, to be bigger. So like the chase ones. But it can't be too big because then crafting becomes useless. Well, no, not necessarily, because you're determining what you're going to get. I'm trying to reach the point where crafting is valuable, exciting, and useful. And finding them is... You can't see my face right now, but I'm doing the pog face. Okay? It's like, whoo! You know what I'm saying? That's the goal. Crafting should not be feeling garbage. It should feel good. Because you're spending resources. But finding them should be Omega Pag. Like that, now you're pagging. This is not everything in update 14, but this is the main feature that we're adding. I have got a bit of a dev team update. Pepperfly, and I have reached an agreement in which Pepperfly is full-time dedicated to modding for the foreseeable future. He's not going to be fully working on Vault Hunters. He needs to do other stuff as well, his own projects, etc. But he is no longer going to be traveling to an office and sit. No. Peppa is going to be part, or is part, he has been part of, but now more so, part of the team. So I might shoot Peppa a message. This is great, by the way. This is amazing. I was so happy to be able to do this. But I might shoot the message to Sir Peppa and say, yo, so you know UIs? Here's the thing. And I'm very excited to have Peppa, like full-time, quote-unquote, on the team.